what do we do? What we were doing is we were talking about some material, trying to finish this up. Additional concepts. Oh, that is beautiful red, isn't it? That's kind of electric red. Additional concepts. We talked a little bit about an important model before, which we will return to later, the production possibilities frontier, the production possibilities curve. What we want to talk about today is a few additional concepts. They don't really fit in any place very well, just sort of throw them in somewhere or another. But ideas that we will talk about, and we want to be familiar with them rather than just later on come in and drop these in the middle of the discussion. So what are these additional concepts? One, people base their behavior, or you could say decisions, on a comparison of benefits and costs. When we talked about that production possibilities frontier, we were mainly talking about costs. But what we're talking about here is human economic behavior, a lot of human behavior, but economic behavior is based on a comparison of benefits and costs. If you're deciding, should I go to class today, then what you do, is, presumably, to the extent this is an economic decision, are the benefits worth the cost? If you take a job, presumably you're comparing, are the benefits worth the cost? If you have like a manager that you think, oh, I hate this guy, then what you start thinking about is, well, the benefits, I get some of the wages, sure, but I just don't like who I'm working with. And so the benefits at kind of a bad job, those benefits don't seem very great. And the costs, you know, you got to get up, you got to give up some leisure time, you got to get yourself to work and so forth. You start weighing benefits and costs, and if you don't like the manager and you don't like the fellow employees and it's too far to drive and so forth, you start saying, nah, I don't think I want to work here. But if you're working with people you like to work with and the wages are good and it's close to home and so forth, then you start comparing benefits and costs and you say, that's a worthwhile thing to do. I will take that job. So benefits versus costs, and that's really the economic model that we will talk about as the semester goes along. And if the benefits are greater than costs, we take action. If costs are greater than benefits, we don't. So anyway, and this will always be in the background when we're talking about economic behavior. People, is there a question? People care about marginal benefits and costs. It's not enough to just say that people care about benefits and costs and making a decision. They do that, but we've got another term, a modifier that we throw in before this benefits and costs, marginal benefits and costs, or we could have said incremental. Benefits and costs. Let me see if I can give you an example. Suppose, for example, that you go out and you look at the cost of owning a car. Let's say it all adds up to, oh gosh, I don't know. Let's say, what would be a good example here of $5,000 a year? Let's say the average person drives a car 10,000 miles. Then what they would say is, hey, that cost me 50 cents a mile to drive my car. Some people reason that way. I'm going to show you where I think that's wrong. But here what they've done is they've just taken the total cost divided by the total number of miles a year, 50 cents a mile. Now, let's take another example. Let's say you go out here and your car is parked. I'll just kind of draw us a picture here. I took my car and washed it last night, so I'm pretty familiar with the way cars look now. So your car is sitting here, and you're thinking about, I'm going to drive over here 1 mile. 0, 1 mile away. Now, what does it cost you to drive that extra mile? Let's say you've got a car that gets 20 miles per gallon. And let's say gas, just to use a nice easy number, because I like easy numbers to work with. Let's say a gas costs $1 a gallon. Then that says that gas is 5 cents per mile. So if gas is 5 cents a mile in your car, you drive from here to there, and it costs you 20 cents. That's, 20 cents. 5 cents. What's this number mean? 50 cents a mile. Well, that's if you take the whole year and just throw all of your costs in there, the depreciation on the car, the insurance costs, the gasoline, change the oil, new tires, all these different things. All the costs of owning the car are in this number. And so all the costs of owning a car might come out to 50 cents a mile. But your incremental cost, if I just go out and get in the car, drive it 1 mile, what does it cost me incrementally, additionally, the marginal cost of driving that mile? And the answer is 5 cents, more or less. Well, how can that be so much less than the 50 cents that we calculated a moment ago? And the answer is because this $5,000 a year, it doesn't look at things on an incremental basis. And let me ask you this. Suppose you go out and get in your car and you drive that 1 mile. How much does your insurance bill go up on your car? Nothing. Not 1 penny. You think that you're going to wear out the tires? Well, slightly maybe, but not very much. You think you're going to wear the car out? No, not really, unless you hit somebody on the way. But the point is that this $5,000, that includes a lot of sort of fixed costs that aren't going to change if you drive the car 1 more mile. Now, this is your cost. If you drive 10,000 miles a year, this is your average cost of owning the car. Own the car. This cost that we're talking about here, this is the cost of driving the car. Let's say you don't drive the car 1 mile. You just let it sit in the garage the whole year. You still have to pay those insurance costs, assuming you signed up for insurance. You're still going to have to pay for the license on it, assuming that you comply with the law and put a license tag on your car. You've still got certain costs with respect to the car, even if it doesn't drive 1 mile. And I'm saying that if you're sitting right here, you're thinking, I already paid the insurance bill. That's not going to go up if I drive this car. I'm already making these monthly car payments. That's not going to go up if I drive the car. All that is going to go up if I drive the car, I'm going to use a little bit of gas, maybe a little bit of tire, a little bit of oil, not very much. It's going to cost me about a nickel. And I'm saying to you that when you make, and people care about, people make their decisions based on incremental costs and benefits, not the total. Not based on this number up here, but based on the 5 cents a mile. That is the extra cost that you're going to bear if you make that drive. And so then you say, gosh, I can drive it for a nickel. How much do I care about it? A dime, let's say. 10 cents. 10 cents I care, I'd like to be there that much. 5 cents it's going to cost me, I'll drive. If you were comparing, I'd like to be there 10 cents worth, and it's going to cost me 50 cents a mile to drive, you don't make the trip. But it doesn't cost you 50 cents a mile to make that additional, to drive that additional mile. Okay. Next, what would it be? Number 3, economic theories. We'll be talking about theories all semester long, one way or another. What economic theories are is really just complex stories. Complex stories about economic behavior. Let's don't just say about economic behavior, explaining economic behavior. These stories are based on facts and assumptions. And from these facts and assumptions, we develop an explanation or prediction about behavior. Last time I was talking in class, and just to kind of give you an example here of a theory or economic model, sometimes people use that term. But last time we were talking in class, and let me see if I can bring that back to you. Let me see if I can bring it back to me. We were talking about opportunity costs, and I mentioned how that part of the cost of many things is the value of the time that a person has. And I gave an example of, let's say, a student who wants to take a one-week vacation, and the student's father, and the student says, hey, let's go on a vacation. And I gave the example, I can't remember the exact details, but maybe the student's got a job that pays $100 a week. And so the student's thinking, if I go on vacation, I won't be here to work, and so it's going to cost me $100 a week in lost earnings. And the father, I gave an example, maybe is an attorney earning $150 an hour. Maybe that attorney earns, what would that be, $6,000 a week, 40 hours times 150, $6,000 a week. The father says, I can't take a vacation. 1 week away, it costs me $5,000. The daughter or the son says it costs me $100. So the son or the daughter is willing to go. The father says, I don't think I want to go. At least that's the way I told the story last time. Anyway, that's kind of a theory of behavior. It's a theory about the facts and assumptions in the case. We're assuming that the father and the son or daughter, they're interested in their income. They'd like to have more income, but on the other hand, they'd like to have a good time too. The facts of the case is the father faces an opportunity cost of taking this vacation of $6,000. The son or daughter has an opportunity cost of $100. So then I came up with a prediction. I predict that the son or daughter is willing to go on vacation before the father or mother, the lawyer. And that's my prediction about human behavior. It's based on this opportunity cost theory that we're talking about. So we come up with this prediction about behavior. So we use these theories in pretty much that way. We try to explain behavior using these facts and assumptions and concepts. Let me put those up there too. And concepts like opportunity cost, but we combine all those things and develop a theory from them, the facts and the assumptions and the concepts. We put all those together and then we predict something about behavior, or we say something about behavior. We're trying to explain it. Now, from one time to the next, one case to the next, your family, my family, somebody else's family, the facts will change. Right? Maybe in one person's family, in your family, the father is a lawyer, and maybe in somebody else's family, the father or the mother is a veterinarian, and somebody else's family, the father or mother is a secretary in an office. And so the facts will change from one case to another. And so when we come up with these economic theories and these predictions about behavior, that could be wrong. It could be right for this attorney and his child or daughter, son or daughter. It might be right in that family, but in another family where the father is a secretary or a file clerk or something like that, and maybe that person's making $300 a week, they say, yeah, let's take that vacation. So the facts will change from case to case, and that being the case, these theories aren't always right. How are we going to know if the theory is right? And the answer is we test theories against actual events. These actual events are just evidence. We've got a theory, now we want to test it. How do we test it? We go out and look and see if actual experience supports the theory or undermines the theory and says, I don't think this theory is working very well in this case. Suppose what you have is you've got these sons and daughters that are earning $100 a week, and you got these parents that are earning $5,000 a week, and the parents are always ready to go on vacation, and the children say, I think I'd rather not go. That would just say, man, that theory didn't work out very well, did it? But that's what we have to do. No theory, and we'll be talking about theories as we go along. No theory is just right and must always be right, and you just got to take it as right and forget about testing that against experience. All theories have to be tested by experience. There's no theory that's just, we know it's right and it's always going to be right, and we don't even have to, these theories like gravity, there's a theory there about that. But there are certain environments, certain places where you drop something and it doesn't go down. And you've seen the space shuttle on television, you know about that. But the point is that we're not always under the influence of gravity. We assume that. I get up in the morning and jump out of bed and I assume I'm going to hit the floor, not the ceiling. That would be funny, wouldn't it? We assume that, but still we have to test our theories against experience. The most successful theories are the ones that have been tested the most and that have basically been not proved right for all times, but been supported by the evidence time after time after time. And so if you get up day after day after day, and I get up and somebody else gets up, and all of us are getting up and we jump out of bed and we hit the floor first, after we've tested that thing a few million times, then we start thinking, man, I think I believe this. But still, it's only right for now, and in another environment, on another planet or whatever, it may or may not work. And this idea of going to another planet is kind of far-fetched, but at least for right now, it's kind of far-fetched. But the idea is there are places where that we're not under the influence of gravity, and there are places perhaps where some of these economic theories that we talk about, that they don't work out either. I told you before that economic theories really will just explain that part of behavior that's self-interested, where you're trying to make yourself better off by the transaction. When you go to church, normally we're not there trying to, bargain with people and buy something. Hey, how much do I have to put in that offering plate? You think I can get by for 50 cents less? And, we're not really trying to maximize our income when we're sitting there in church, right? If you were, when the offering plate came by, you would take a little out rather than put it in. People, all aspects of human behavior is not explained with economic theories, economic models. And so what we have to do is just recognize this, that sometimes our economic theories work and sometimes not. How do we know? Well, we'll find out what the economic theory predicts or tells us, and then we will just wait and test that against experience. And it may work this time and it may not. No theory is proved right for all times, all places. Doesn't have to be questioned again. All theories need to be tested again. And it's the ones that have stood up over time against experience and succeeded in these tests, those are the ones that are the most powerful theories. Those are the ones that we take for granted. And if a theory has been sort of confirmed by experience time after time after time, then we start talking about economic laws. Those economic laws are just ones that have been proved to be successful in practice, in experience, time after time. I put the quotation marks around the word laws. Obviously, somebody doesn't pass these laws. These are called laws after they have worked out in practice quite a few times, a large number of times, and people come to accept them as truth. And this idea of gravity, we don't act like, I don't know if that's going to work this time. But nevertheless, it won't always work no matter where you are. It works in the little experience that we've had, our own realm of human experience, but it doesn't work in all times and all places. So these laws become laws in certain instances, but somebody else may consider it not to be a law. There may be societies where people are not really self-interested and don't really, buy things and sell things in order to get ahead. Maybe in some places, I don't know where this would be, people say, oh, I want to sell you something, a pair of shoes, and they're thinking, oh, I'd like to lower the price of a pair of shoes. You want to buy them for $2? You want to buy them for $1, 50 cents. There may be people who want to sell things at a lower price, and people who are buying, maybe they say, no, I won't pay 50 cents, I'll pay you $100. They want to pay a higher price. I don't know who those people are, but there is that possibility. So those things that we call economic laws are just laws because in our own world, when we have tested these theories, they've worked out pretty well. Number 4. There's a term that we will use several times, about 100, during a semester. That term is ceteris paribus. Why don't you write some way down, you'll know how to pronounce this. Ceteris paribus. This kind of sounds like Shakespeare. Caesar might have said something like this, right? Ceteris paribus. Which just means other things remaining the same. If, what? The price of X goes up, let's say of X rises, people will buy less X. Ceteris paribus. And what I mean is this. If the price of X goes up, rises, people will buy less X. If other things don't change, all other things remaining the same or all other things remaining equal, when the price of X goes up, people buy less of it. Now, all other things don't remain equal in the real world. In the real world, what might happen is there may be a war. People may be speculating on the price of this product in the future. People's consumers' incomes may be going up or may be going down. There could be a depression. A lot of other things can change. And so I might say something to you like, well, we have something. This thing right here is, we call it the law of demand, and we'll come back to it later. Oh, there's that term law again, isn't it? This law of demand, this is a theory we've got about human behavior that we observe it over and over, and it does a good job. So we just say, yeah, that's always going to work, even though it may not always work. But we say that, we assume that. Law of demand, that the price of something rises, people buy less of it. Ceteris paribus. Well, when we tell you about this law of demand, what we mean is, yeah, we recognize that there are other things out there that affect consumption behavior, consumption of good X. There's other things out there that can affect consumption behavior. But if we hold all those other things constant, if they do not change, those other things, and all that changes is the price changes, and we observe how do people react in their consumption behavior, then what we're going to observe, if the law of demand is correct, is that we'll say price goes up, people buy less. Other things being equal. And then if you want to open that up and say, well, other things aren't equal, other things can change, then those other things may have an effect where it obscures this, and we do not see that people are buying less following a price increase. But they're not, but they failed to follow this rule, we believe, because there was something else going on, as I say, a depression or speculation or a war or something else taking place that swamped the effects, so it just overwhelmed them, and we don't observe this. But other things being equal, and other things remaining the same or other things being equal, there's different ways that we use this term. But this is always here when we talk about an economic theory or a law. We're talking about a relationship between one thing and another thing, leaving everything else outside, not letting that come in and interfere with this relationship we're trying to talk about. So ceteris paribus. Number five. Fallacies of logic. Or you could say logical fallacies. We'll just have sort of a list here and talk about those. A, fallacy of composition. Whatever, you can take an object, a thing, or like society or whatever, and divide it into parts. Imagine that, A, B, C, D, E, F. We've got, here we have the overall thing, the whole big deal, and then that big deal can be divided up into parts. And here I've divided into 6 parts. What the fallacy of composition says is this. It is a fallacy to believe that by understanding each one of these parts, we understand the whole thing. The fallacy of composition says that by understanding the parts, we understand the whole thing. Or it goes in the opposite direction too. By understanding the whole thing, we automatically understand each one of the parts. That's a fallacy. It is a fallacy to believe automatically, sometimes this is true, by the way, But the fallacy is, in logic, the fallacy is assuming automatically that the whole is the sum of the parts. And that by understanding the parts, you understand the whole. By understanding the whole, you understand the parts. As I say, that can be true in certain cases. It may not be true in other cases, but it's a fallacy to automatically assume, without even questioning this, to automatically assume that the whole is equal to the sum of the parts. Now, here's how we get into this in economics. What we talk about sometimes in economics is individuals, and then this is microeconomics, the economics of individuals or of small economic units. And then sometimes we add everybody together and we get the macroeconomy. The microeconomy looks at individuals as individuals. The macroeconomy doesn't look at them as individuals anymore. It adds everybody up, you and me and the next person and the next one. That adds us all up and looks at us as just one big United States economy. Okay, and so the whole idea here is that microeconomics, where we're looking at the individuals, we come to a pretty deep understanding of that microeconomic behavior, but it's not a case of just saying, well, I understand how you behave, I understand how the next person behaves, and the next one, and now that I understand how everybody behaves, I understand the economy. Well, the economy, the macroeconomy, is everybody added together, and I'm saying that's just a fallacy, a fallacious way of looking at things to say that once you understand the parts, you understand the whole. Maybe you don't. Let me give you an example. Suppose that, I don't know what I have, but maybe I have $20 in my pocket. Suppose that I say I would like to hold $100 in cash all the time. Now, we can take that as a microeconomic action. I'm just deciding I'd like to hold $100 in cash all the time. 4 times as much as I've been carrying, 5 times as much as I've been carrying around. Can I do that? Sure, no problem. Is there any impediment that will hold me back? Can't think of any. What if we broaden this and say that you would like to do the same, and the next person wants to do the same, and the next, and the next, and the next, and everybody wants to hold 5 times as much cash in their pocket. I'm talking about cash money now. Everybody wants to hold 5 times as much cash in their pocket as they did when they woke up this morning. Can we all do that? Where would it come from? I know where I would get my $100. I would sell something, take some money out of my checking account or whatever. I would do that, and then I'd have more cash. I'd sell something, and I'd get more cash, and sure, I can walk around. But the thing is I got my cash from somebody else, whoever I sold this thing to. So they just gave up some cash. How are we all going to hold more cash? What would happen if we decided to do that? I decide to hold more cash, you decide to hold more cash. Well, we're all starting to hold more cash, and a way of accumulating cash is don't spend it. And so if we all try to accumulate more cash in our pocket, we're most all of us trying to reduce our spending a little bit. As we spend a little bit less, there's a little bit less spent at the stores. At the stores, when they don't sell as much, they shorten a worker's hours. They tell them to go home a little while early, no overtime tonight. Maybe they don't hire somebody they were thinking about hiring. Then when the department store doesn't sell the merchandise, they turn around to their wholesalers, who they're getting the merchandise from, and they don't order as much. And don't forget, this is happening everywhere. People are just trying to accumulate cash in their pockets. And so people aren't spending in New York and aren't spending in Los Angeles and aren't spending in Springfield. Those are the big 3. And so the wholesalers aren't getting the orders, and the wholesalers turn around to the manufacturers and say, man, we're just not selling merchandise the way we were. Why don't you stop producing for us? Now, you can go ahead and do whatever you want for somebody else, but the wholesaler says, we don't want to order anymore. And the manufacturer says, well, yeah, I know, but not only did this wholesaler cut off the orders, but so did another one, another one, another one, that we're just not selling the merchandise. So the manufacturer starts laying off employees, maybe shut down a plant. Tells the raw materials manufacturers, don't be making any of that stuff. We don't need it. So what I'm saying to you is if we look at this simple act of, I want to hold 5 times as much cash as before, if we look at that simple act on a microeconomic level, then what you would say is, you know, that's not even curious or interesting or anything else. You want $100, just put $100 in your pocket and, you know, don't bother me about it. That's nothing. And it truly is a nothing action. It's just easily possible for me to do it. But if the next person and the next person and the next one and so forth, if all of us decide to do exactly that same thing, then what just happened here in the macroeconomic sense, when we all tried to do the same thing, we just caused a recession. And we'll talk more about recessions later on in the semester. But the point is we caused the economy to turn down by trying to accumulate this additional cash in our pockets. Would it happen that way? Yes, it would. It would happen exactly like that. We would have a recession unless something else happens. So I should say, ceteris paribus. If we all of us try to accumulate this additional cash, we will cause a depression or a recession. Ceteris paribus. Now, ceteris may not be paribus. That is to say, all of the things may not be equal. Maybe what will happen is the Federal Reserve will come along and change its monetary policy. And we'll talk about the Federal Reserve later in the semester. But for now, the key is to understand that you can understand the parts and you may not understand the whole. And you may understand the whole and not understand the parts. And these are entirely different fields of inquiry. And so we have to sometimes be a little bit clever about how we understand the economy. Everybody on a daily basis transacts in the microeconomy. When you are over buying a lunch or when you go to work and things like that, you're in the microeconomy. And so since we all live in the microeconomy, we feel like we have a pretty good understanding of that. And I think probably most people do. But even though we individually live in the microeconomy, combined or collectively, we make up the macroeconomy. And there's no time in our everyday experience where we get together and sort of huddle up together as one, unit, economic unit, and make some macroeconomic decision. We just don't have experience with that. And so part of the things that we'll be talking about in this course, this semester, is how to look at that macroeconomy, how it differs from the micro economy that we're used to transacting in. A second logical fallacy is the post hoc fallacy. And I've written a quote up here, after this, therefore, because of this. That's what the post hoc fallacy is about. It's what it says. And let me just kind of put some events up here. Event A happens, right now. And then event B happens 10 minutes later. We have event A happens at this moment. 10 minutes from now, event B happens. How about this one? Event A, you break a mirror. Event B, you walk out the door, there's a little water on the floor, you slip, fall, and break your leg. That's sad. Then you say, oh man, I broke that mirror, and then I had bad luck, I broke my leg. Then on the way to the doctor, maybe you clunk your head on something, and and you say, man, my life has become a living hell after I broke that mirror. Some people look at the world like that. They say, well, look, this thing happened first, event A, then event B happened after that, and they put this little arrow in there like event A caused event B. Well, no. Event A happens, event B happens later. There may or may not be any relationship between those. The fallacy is just assuming automatically that because event A happened first, that it caused event B. You know what it caused event B, this slipping and falling out here on the floor. There was some other event C, where some idiot put water on the floor. And you walked out the door, maybe you've got leather soles on your shoes, and they're kind of slick, and you get in that water, and your foot goes out from under you, and you're down on the floor. There's some other event maybe that caused that. And so that's what we need to do, is always be aware of this, is that because something happens and something follows that, that doesn't mean that the second thing was caused by the first. People will do that sometimes. They'll say something like this, oh man, we're in a recession now. And we just had that war. And so that war must have caused that recession. Well, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But the fact that they come kind of close together, people will sometimes, and we were just talking about that a moment ago, where that we don't have a lot of experience with the macroeconomy. And so when there's some macroeconomic event, we're looking for solutions or for answers, for explanations. We're trying to make up a theory is what we're trying to do. But we see this macroeconomic event, the recession, and then we don't have experience with that, the macroeconomy, and so then we try to come up with an explanation based on our experience. How about this one? There's a lot of inflation lately. I see prices going up a lot. That's a macroeconomic event. Well, what caused that? I know what caused it. I was over at the store last night and I saw that grocery store guy, that employee over there, and he was stamping higher prices on all the cans of whatever, beans. The beans were 39 cents. He's stamping 45 cents on them now. Price went up 6 cents. That's inflation. Inflation's caused by grocery store owners. And not just grocery store owners, but greedy grocery store owners. And out at the mall, where the price of clothing's going up, what caused that? I know what caused it. There's people out there, and I saw them raising the price of merchandise. There was a sweater I wanted to buy. It was $29. I came back the next day. It was $35. Somebody raised that price $6. What causes that? I'll tell you what causes it. It's the guy that runs that store is greedy. He wants my money. And he's putting higher prices on these things, and so the price goes up. So, boy, I'm really kind of unhappy with that store and that manager of that store. What causes inflation? Those greedy people that run these stores. So we've got this sort of microeconomic view of the world, and we're trying to understand the macroeconomy. And when we're trying to understand the macroeconomy, let me sort of get rid of this now and 10 minutes from now. If the macroeconomy is some event that occurs, inflation, recession, what we are most likely to do is just look back and see what happened right before that and say, that's what I blame. Yeah, very often that's not true. It's not greedy grocery store owners that cause the price of food to go up, because grocery store owners are always greedy. I mean, that's more or less why they go into business. They want to make a profit. They want their income to go up, and they're greedy from the start, more or less like college professors, and more or less like the students. We're all kind of greedy, aren't we? But even though we're all kind of greedy, and the grocery store owners are kind of greedy, sometimes the price of merchandise goes up and sometimes it goes down. If the price of, let's say, canned goods is going down from 45 cents to 39 cents, do you say that greed disappeared? Oh yes, there's just no greed anymore. No. There was something else that caused that. Something else over here, some event C has caused that, and because we don't see event C, what we want to do very often is we want to tie something that we did see into something that we're trying to explain. The posthoc fallacy says it is a fallacious way, a flawed way of thinking to say that if B happened after A caused B. Maybe A does cause B. And it's not a fallacy. I mean, you're not wrong about this connection. The thing that's wrong here is to automatically assume that because something comes first, and then the thing that comes second was caused by the thing that came first. Number 6. Positive versus normative economics. Positive versus normative economics. Positive economics is the economics of what is. That's the economics of predicting. The what is, that's really describing or predicting. But when we're using economics for that, and I gave you an example a while ago of positive economics, so let me go back to this statement here. If the price of X rises, people will buy less X. That's positive economics. I'm making a prediction about behavior. Okay? Normative economics, it judges. Is that good or bad? How about this? The economics of what should be. Here we're deciding something's good and bad, and we want that to happen. So I might say something like this. Oh boy, that income tax, that should be cut down to only half of where it is right now. Now I'm talking about an economic subject, the income tax. But I'm not just kind of working that out of if the income tax is cut, here's what the effects will be. That would be positive economics. I'd just be going through and predicting something or describing something. But if I start saying, boy, I'm for that, I want that tax to be cut, or I want it to be increased. And sometimes I'll disguise that where maybe I won't, but or at least I'll try not to. But sometimes people do disguise this. They're for something or against something, but they don't come right out and say they're for or they're against it. But they are, and that's sort of guiding their way of looking at things. But anyway, this economics of what should be, what it ought to be, what we want it to be, that's normative economics. I am going to work hard this semester to try and focus on positive economics. When you're doing positive economics, you're not supposed to care who the president is or who the Congress is or what their political party is. Then what you would do is you say, okay, the president said he was going to lower tax rates, and here's where he's going to lower them to. Here's where the effect would, here's what the effect would be. And that's simply positive economics. And I don't care whether I like the president or dislike him. That's my analysis of the effect of this law. As I say, I will try and focus, and usually that's not too difficult to do, for me anyway, but I will try and focus on positive economics. You're not here to hear about what I think the good life is all about, or what president I like, or what political party I'm against, or what my vision of nirvana would be. So what I'll do is try and come in here and teach you about these concepts, these laws, these theories, and so forth. We'll try and apply them, but in a positive way, in a descriptive way, and so forth. And if, what we describe, you can sort of think of it a little bit like a doctor. A doctor wants you to get well, but if you come into the doctor and you got some rare case of, fungus growing on your hand or whatever, he's going to study that, and he's not going to be going, oh man, I hate this. He's just going to be looking at that and trying to figure out what it is. And to him, that's a bunch of cells that are doing something weird, and he's going to try to understand it. He's acting in a positive sense, not just thinking, oh, we hate this. You hate it. This fungus is growing on your hand maybe, then that's real easy for you to say you hate it. But the doctor is trying to treat that in a more positive sense without his values added in. Finally, let's say number 7. Number 7, graphs. Just want to spend a moment here talking about graphs. We use graphs for several things. We use them to illustrate relationships. And let me draw you a graph that illustrates a relationship we just talked about a moment ago. This is a demand curve. And what I told you just a moment ago, I said, here's the law of demand. And I said, if the price of something goes up, people buy less of it. Well, let's start off with this demand curve. The price of something is 5 cents. And then people buy 100 units. So we would start off with our 5 cents and go over to the demand curve and down to say, oh, people want to buy 100 units of this thing at 5 cents per unit. Suppose the price goes up to 10 cents per unit. Then what we observe here is people want to buy 35 units. Start off at the price, over to the demand curve, and down 35 units. Well, we're using a graph here to illustrate this relationship. It's just a theoretical relationship. What is good X? Don't know. We don't even care about the price and the quantity. We don't have to put in all these lines. What we can do is we just draw that curve and we say, here is the normal relationship between the price of a good and the quantity that people want to buy. Sometimes we use a graph to show actual experience. History, if you like. We use a graph to show history or to display data. And so we could do something like this with a graph. How about the year? 1960, 1980. And then what would this be? Number of cars manufactured in USA. So we go out and we start getting the numbers. And now we're displaying data. Right? We're just taking a column of numbers and graphing them, and now what we can do is look at this curve and sort of get a feeling for what's happening to car manufacturing over time. Let me mention one final point about graphs and then we'll quit. We want to talk about the slope of a curve. How about this? I'll just draw me a line. Here's X, Y. If we take a line, we want to calculate the slope of it. What we need to know is two pieces of information. Between those 2 points, I'll call them A and B, what's the horizontal distance, what's the vertical distance? And so let's say the horizontal distance between these 2 points is 10 units of X. And let's say the vertical distance between the 2 points is 50 units of Y. The slope of the line is equal to the, here's the rise divided by the run, so to speak. The rise over the run between 2 points, and here that's 50 units of Y over 10 units of X equals 5. The slope of this curve is 5. For every one more unit we go in this direction, we go up 5. For every 1 unit we go horizontally, the rise is 5 units. We'll talk about this some more in the future. So long, I'll see you next time.